as long as you know that this affiliation, this emotion is not affecting your productivity, you are your best professional, or you're the best version of yourself as a professional, irrespective of this, right? The minute this particular element starts getting affected, please then reach out to HR, because see, HR will get to know anyway. I'm sorry to say this.
They
I
know
tell
everything.
everybody, HR will get to know anyway.
Maybe you had one. Maybe you're thinking about it. Maybe you've been explicitly warned that it's against the rules. I'm sure everyone's felt chemistry with a coworker before. Well, I sure have. But let's not talk about me just yet. Workplace romances. What should we think of them? And if you're tempted, what should you do? In today's episode, we're putting that to an expert.
Love matters. Love matters. Love matters. Love matters with Evelyn Sharma.
Hi, I'm Evelyn Sharma, and this is Love Matters, a podcast about relationship topics that matter to you and me. Produced by Indian Express and DW, Germany's international broadcaster. Before we get any further, make sure to subscribe or follow in your podcast feed now to never miss an episode.
Love matters.
Have you ever thought about a coworker romantically? Well, I can understand why. Many of us spend most of our waking lives working, and aren't workplaces where you meet people with common interests, and that just sounds like the perfect breeding grounds for relationships to blossom, right? Today, I have invited an expert on workplace culture to advise us on the best practice when pursuing love at the office. Welcome to the show, Pallavi Pareek.
Hey, Evelyn, thank you so much for having me here. And what a topic to discuss. I'm so glad we are finally picking this up.
My pleasure. Pallavi, you're the founder of Ungender, an organization that educates employees at different companies on gender sensitization and sexual harassment laws.
Absolutely. If we look at the workplaces of today and even ourselves, you and me, Evelyn, when we were growing up and as part of our curriculum in school or in colleges, human behavior and communication and our associations were never really picked up as a very important or very dedicated subject. We were told to excel in a
True.
lot of things in our life, but in fact, every education content and social and the media content that came our way kept creating and introducing gender stereotypes and behavior patterns that we have to absorb as we interact with the world around us. Now, by the time we reach in the workplaces, we are arriving there not just with our knowledge, degrees, education, and other things. We are also arriving there with the stereotypes baggage and the way that we look at each other as different genders and sexual identities.
Right. I've seen that you also have a wonderful blog on the website, Ungender. And I think everyone who wants to know a bit more about what your company does, check it out. Check out the blog. And that's ungender.in.
Hey, thank you for the shout out on the blog.
Well, as you know, I've worked in Bollywood films for a decade. And of course, there has been the occasional attraction with a co-actor. But let's not use any names. But I'll just say it's not unusual for two people romancing on screen to let a few feelings slip into real life too. And I'm sure that's for everyone, if you work for a long time together. I guess the more you are exposed to each other, the more you kind of find things that you like, dislike. But funnily, even enemies at some point could fall in love with each other. So what are some of the most awkward or ridiculous stories you've heard about coworker relationships, Pallavi?
See, stories get crazy every day at my end, Evelyn, because most of the situations that come our way in terms of either an official complaint that we are resolving or investigating, or something that comes in the form of a verbal concern, 4 out of 10 of those complaints or concerns are actually arising of that you can put under the category of somebody stalking them.
Oh
Okay,
my. Yeah.
somebody constantly trying to make a pass at them, or somebody arranging for work situations in such a manner that this person will always end up taking the same cab as them. I've heard of stories wherein a person actually coordinated with rest of the members in the team. So it was almost like, just imagine a college scenario wherein one person tells the other team members that, hey, I like this person. And in order to woo this person is actually making arrangements in the workspace after all the team members have left.
But that sounds very like a one-sided love story gone wrong.
But at what stage do we say that it has gone wrong, right? That's why I'm saying that the crazy stories that you say, or the stories which will end up surprising somebody like me or you, also have different phases. I've heard of stories and cases that have come to us wherein, and let's not genderize it, right? Let's not say that it's always the one specific gender and sex that is actually doing the trespassing or the violation. We have heard it from other ends as well, wherein a junior colleague, a junior person, in awe of the senior person, has actually created fake letters
Oh my.
because that person had access to the password. Imagine if I'm somebody who is your secretary and you are actually relying upon me to schedule your meetings and book your appointments and everything, and I have concocted this entire thing out and then deliberately
True.
created these evidences just to be able to showcase to your real partner that you're having a relationship with me.
That is really like where it can go wrong. And we don't really think about that. So thank you for kind of shining a light on that. And to our listeners, guys, if you have any stories you'd like to share with us, please go ahead and you can always get in touch with us via email at lovematters@dw.com. But before we go any further, let's get some basic facts in order.
Love matters.
The Indian workforce has some of the longest working hours in the world. A 2021 report from the International Labour Organization ranked India 5th in the world among countries with long working hours. Depending on your line of work, that's plenty of time to get to know your colleagues. And in India, it may be more acceptable to pursue a romance with your co-workers than in other countries. In one study conducted in 2012 by Randstad, an Amsterdam-based staffing company, 70% of Indian employees surveyed reported having had romantic relationships with co-workers, compared to 33% in Japan and 36% in Luxembourg.
Okay, so we heard that A, Indians work a lot, and B, they generally don't seem to shy away from an office meet cute. So even though you've outlined what things can go wrong, I'm sure sometimes also it can go right. But what is actually allowed? Are there any laws around workplace romance in India?
There are no direct laws prohibiting workplace office romance and relationships, but India does have a workplace sexual harassment prevention law, right? And
Okay.
yes, it does.
That is good.
A very stringent and comprehensive one.
Well, that's good. And we'll get into talking about the Me Too movement also in a while. But now I have a question for you. Do you think that companies should just generally not allow office romances? Would that make it easier?
No, the problem is, can they do it? So the answer is no.
So what are the HR guidelines then? If you can't tell your employees not to get involved with each other, how do you keep it professional at work, I guess, and make sure that they keep the romance at home in a way?
Yes, great question. Thanks, Evelyn. So, see, first, let's acknowledge that there's no way that companies can stop this. It's part of a human nature. And as people spend time together, affiliation, admiration, liking, romance, and even more and beyond is bound to happen. Knowing that this is bound to happen, then the only option and the action that works in the favor of companies and business leaders is to be able to monitor it. What I mean by monitoring is that they should be aware of it. They should be in the know of it.
But isn't that also sort of like private? Do you really have to inform your HR if you are kind of going out with someone? Maybe you personally don't even know where it's going. Why should you involve someone else if you haven't even told your best friend yet?
Because you're doing it in company's time. It doesn't matter. Your best friend is not paying for the time that you're spending in the company, right?
Oh, you mean if you're romancing at work instead of after work?
Yes. See, there are
Okay.
reasons why people join companies, right? They join it for money, they join it for status, recognition, upskilling, satisfaction, and other
Hmm.
things. I don't see the reason of joining a company is to find a life partner or to find a romantic interest, right? So let's start with that premise that you have joined a
Yeah.
company or a resource joins a company because they are looked upon as an asset to the organization.
Right. Right.
Right now that dedicated time is the time when you're supposed to be productive. You're supposed to make sure your KRAs and KPIs are met, and of course, the company in return also abides by certain promises that they are required to keep. Now, in between all these things, because we cannot really control people's emotions and emotional state towards other their fellow colleagues and everybody else that they're meeting during the course of their work, then the next best thing is that be conscious, right? People are not children at work. These are all
Mm.
grown-ups professionals, right? We'll talk about Gen Z later, but right now we're talking about individuals who understand why they are showing up to work, right?
Yeah.
Because they understand why they're showing up to work. Yes, without violating the privacy element, they don't have to announce it to the entire organization. But even if they don't share it with, let's say, a people success manager or HR or somebody, it's not as if other members in the team are not privy to this information. As long as people can keep this personal relationship outside the office environment, then I agree that yes, it will be a declaration or violation of their privacy. They should not do it. But that's not how emotions work.
So where's the boundary then when you have to say, okay, now we actually are romancing at work, versus like, so say I work at a bank and I have someone I really like, but they're in a different department to me, but we're still in one company and we still have to interact with each other a few times a week. But we've also gone out for a drink after work and we kind of, go out for dinners and, we've kissed probably in our private time. And now we are romancing, but it doesn't mean that like now I cancel all my meetings in the daytime and we just hang out and chit chat. So I'm not really using up the office time, but it is pretty serious. Or maybe the other person doesn't think it's so serious. So now it's become a problem and we're having our first fight. When is it time to tell HR?
We have a lot of deep dive discussions with respective employee groups on this. This is my response, Evelyn, to every
Mhm.
person that the minute you, as a professional, start thinking that this relationship is starting to affect your decisions at work, that is the time that you should actually tell somebody.
Yeah, so definitely if there's a conflict of interest that impacts your work life, definitely look for someone from HR and have a chat with them.
Yeah, but the conflict of interest can also be subjective. Just the other day, some HR leader was actually asking me that, Pallavi, two people in my team have, I see, because they were going through the travel time and the cab share activities, and they just realized that some people are staying late at work even when they are not required to stay late at work, just so that they can be in the same cab as their, the partner, the
Oh,
person that they want to
sneaky.
travel with. Right, sneaky, right? But that's what it has come to. That now, because of this, the HR is doubting that there's something going on because these two people are not even supposed to be at this time. Post 9 o'clock, they actually have no role to play.
But then wouldn't you do that also if you find a really close friend at work? You probably would also wait for them and say, like, we'll take a cab together. And I'm definitely devil's advocate over here.
We have to be for both sides.
Absolutely. Pallavi, what were you saying about Gen Z? How is Gen Z different?
Gen Z is more unmarried and unattached to begin with. I
Yeah.
mean,
Do you
I mean,
think, so what I've learned about Gen Z so far is that they're definitely open to a good situationship, which is not really a committed relationship. But I think Gen Z is a bit more easygoing when it comes to dating. Do you think they define those boundaries differently? They flirt more, but they don't think there's any meaning to it as much as, someone from our millennial or baby boomer generation would have thought.
I first like the word situationship. I'm going to I'm going to go deeper into that. I'll not start by saying that Gen Z is more romantic or more this or any other term, but I do believe that Gen Z is more vocal, and
Hmm.
Gen Z is more devoid of inhibitions. Gen Z's exposure to dealing with people from different profiles and roles is devoid of a lot of these rules that perhaps our generation is a product of.
Right.
We were brought up with a lot of rules, right? If somebody is senior, talk to them like this. If somebody is of a different age, talk to them like this. And also because our generation was not exposed to that much of the global
Yeah.
culture,
Yeah.
there's a lot of dilemmas there as well. Gen Z doesn't have that. So with that premise, and also that more and more Gen Z are joining the workforce by 2030, will almost 75% will be Gen Z.
Wow.
Yes, they're
Mm.
more expressive and their expression devoid of inhibitions, plus the lack of a structure of what a committed relationship looks like, because it's evolving for them. Maybe at our age and our generation, it was a three-level thing: date, engagement, announcement, and then marriage, something like that. I'm oversimplifying it, but that's how it
Yeah.
used to be. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah, I know
right
what you. Yeah.
Right now, that's not the case. For Gen Z, maybe after 10 dates also, it doesn't really mean that there's a serious ongoing thing. So that is an element that we have to look into. And that's why the conversation with Gen Z cannot be something more of a prohibitory. You can
Right.
talk in a prohibitory language with the other generations people, other professionals, but not with Gen Z. The minute you start creating those prohibitions, you have lost them. At the same time, you
Mm.
need them. They are the workforce of the future.
Right, right. And I'm sure there are fantastic benefits that that brings with them, bringing in a fresh wind and a bit more easygoing attitude to a lot of things. But it could also be a bit dangerous not to know where the limits are and not to know where personal boundaries are. Maybe for someone who's not that easygoing about things, and how you could invite trouble like that. So I'm sure you guys are working on this, and I'll be reading your blog to see the Gen Z advice on there.
No, it's more difficult, Evelyn, actually, to talk about people not from Gen Z, to talk
Mhm.
about all the
Oh,
extramarital affairs they're having in the offices. Trust me, I will always find it easier to talk to Gen Z about the relationship boundaries and other dimensions than to talk to people who I know belong to a generation which is mostly married, 85% and more married, and yet engaging in office romance and romantic
oh.
relationships. Right? The office spouse was a term which was coined in our generation, if you remember.
I guess like even when I was in India in the last decade, a lot of my friends that were young working women, their moms were not working in their lifetime. So I'm sure that our generation was a first very strong working women generation. But yeah, I guess in other places in the world that would have been a lot earlier.
But with this, Evelyn, sorry, I just want to say
Mm.
one thing, that the minute we start talking about working women, right, this is
Mm.
where setting up good policies and healthy policies has worked for a lot of companies.
Mm-hmm.
Especially for social constructs where companies have acknowledged and realized that if you want women to join our workforce and if you want women to continue growing in our workforce, one of the major reasons why women will leave this company, even if they continue the career, is if their partner or husband is going to be from some other city or from some other company. And that's why they will switch companies or they will switch jobs. In addition to that, a majority of women are not allowed to work after they get married because families have their own concerns, like I was telling you in the beginning, that they will be
Mm.
working alongside men only, or what will be their work timings, or will they be traveling alone back and from work. So many
Mm.
things. And that's when companies started realizing that, hey, we can actually turn this entire office relationship strategy around and make it work for ourselves.
Yeah, I think it's important that companies take those steps to create a safe and comfortable work environment for everyone who works there. With the Gen Zs being a bit more easygoing and a bit more open to conversation and a bit more vocal as well, as you said, do you think the Me Too movement is going to be something that will have to resurface again in their generation? Or do you think that they are not likely to cross these kind of boundaries or are more likely to say, hey, stop here, I don't want this, whatever you're trying to do? Because the Me Too movement has been groundbreaking for our generation. I think that was something that has really impacted and changed the workplace across the world, but especially I feel in India because I lived in India. What were your thoughts on the Me Too movement?
It hasn't broken any grounds yet
You
in
think?
India, at
Oh.
least. It hasn't, because I've been in this space for close to 2 decades of my life. The past 11 years have been
Mm-hmm.
spent studying the Indian working ecosystem. And yes, absolutely. While I'm so glad that the Me Too movement happened and a lot of conversations were picked up, a lot of people are now activated to this construct. But see, we are talking about mindset shift and behavior change, Evelyn, here.
Hmm.
People who are working or people who are entering the workspaces and who will be entering the workplaces in the next 5 years, okay, and even the 10 years, the education system is going to be the same for them. The textbooks are not changing any learnings for them. The teachers or professors are not undergoing any revolutionary mindset shift. So they're going to be more or less the same product.
Well, I sure hope not. I sure hope not. I hope that the internet will have some sort of impact on, the things we learn. I think once you enter a workplace and you feel uncomfortable in a situation, I think the first thing you do is Google whether they have the right to do this or not.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's like a new way of approaching a problem. Like I probably would Google it before I even call a friend or my mom to tell her what's happened, just so I know whether I'm in the right or not, because it's so easily available.
Mm-hmm.
The law is, on the internet. You can just have a look, or you can find someone. I saw on your website, for example, you can message a bot.
Mm-hmm.
You can type in your question and you can send it to your team, and hopefully somebody is going to get back to you in time, and you'll have a sort of, idea of, okay, I didn't need to learn anything about this, but now I'm in this problem and I can solve this in a day's time.
Right. See, the major part of women population, because you're talking about a change that will only happen when the other side will start speaking. Purely speaking of Me Too at this point in time,
Yeah.
the behavior on this other side, be it of the companies or be it of the individuals who are actually harassers or perpetrators, will
Hmm.
only start thinking about shifting their change and behavior is when people on the other receiving side will start speaking up. Right now, the speaking up part is the population, mostly is women. Right now,
Hmm.
how many women actually are aware about their rights? How many women have access to looking for what their rights are? How many women, even after the first two checks on, will actually decide, considering various factors, family, social, financial, and other things, that they actually want to speak up about it? And even if they clear all these three levels, on the other side, if companies in today's time say that we don't want to take up the complaint that you have said, the only alternative that they have is to either go to the court or to come and talk about it on social media. Now, social media courtrooms are not very friendly. Yes,
Hmm.
there's a huge support system, and that's what I love about the entire Me Too. That
Hmm.
and the web as well. That you don't really need to look for a local support. There's a global support readily waiting if a woman chooses to speak up. But at the
Yeah.
end of the day, those women supporters are not really going to get you justice. They'll give you the support. They can't get you the justice.
Absolutely. I appreciate all these points. And I think how many women is how many women had enough from being treated wrong. And, guys, if you have a story to share, please share it online. And we would love to hear from you. You can write us at lovematters@dw.com. But now, Pallavi, how do we make it work? If I fall in love at work, well, not me, I'm married, but if anybody falls in love at work, how do we make it work? How can we have hope that when we're tempted by love and it is two sided, how do we make it work?
I'm glad neither of us are against love, right? I mean, who can be against love, even if it's at work? So nobody should be against it, but it's very important to make sure that the love is healthy
Mhm.
and it's not harming anybody. It's very important, first and foremost, to one, take the consent, like do it in a consensual manner. What I mean by consensual is no matter what stage you are at, it's very important to vocalize it. I know there are a lot of people who are shy and introverts and who do not know how to vocalize and verbalize these things, but it will be great if you can check at an early stage only if the other person is at the same level.
Hmm.
That's one. Number two is take the consent of the organization also. What I mean by that is at an early stage, you don't really have to run to HR and tell them that, hey, I'm starting to like this person and do I have your permission? But as long as you know that this affiliation, this emotion is not affecting your productivity, You are the best version of yourself as a professional, irrespective of this, right? The minute this particular element starts getting affected, please then reach out to HR, because see, HR will get to know anyway. I'm sorry to
They know
say this.
everything.
I tell everybody. HR will get to know anyway, right? And then I don't know if that relationship is going to happen or not, but definitely it will tarnish your professional advancement in this organization or in any organization that you are in. It has happened with various people. It will continue happening. So it's better to actually be more proactive about having a healthy discussion with the HR or any other entity. So please go and read your company's policies. Even if they have not written anything, they will still have some ethos surrounding this part. And third thing is that I think learn to hear no.
Right.
But that's Evelyn. It's a very difficult learning.
Yeah, that's true. Well, now we've learned how to make it work at work. Of course, unfortunately, Pallavi cannot give us the secret sauce for how to make your relationship work. I guess for that, we would have to have someone else on the show. But, Pallavi, what if it doesn't work out? Because to be honest, everyone that I have dated who I was involved at work with, the initial chemistry is great because you have so many things in common. You have the same interests and you're kind of like a house on fire. And, there's this physical attraction and everything goes great until you realize we have way too much in common and we see each other all the time. And I would like to have some space and some time for myself. And, things may go bad. What do you do when it doesn't work out?
Be mature about it, Evelyn. That's what I tell people.
Nobody's mature, okay? Remember, we're all just children in grown-up pants.
Absolutely. What do you do when things go wrong? Actually, there's not much you can do when things go wrong other than be mature. And then you just go back to being your productive self in the office. The sad thing is that people don't understand, once again, how to keep that divide.
Yeah.
Right? So what you should not do instead is not bring that anger back to the team, not bring that hatred back to the workplace.
Yes.
Right?
And I think, guys, when it comes to office romance, think again. Is it really worth it? Do you really want to do this to your company, to yourself, to another person? Think again, am I in love with a person that is also in love with me, or am I overstepping my boundary here? And again, if you are both in love, you just, you can find love anywhere. But that's just me being a super positive person. I know a lot of times when we spend so much time in one place, we think we'll never get to meet anybody outside. So we can as well go for this one. But I think that's also settling in a way. And again, think again. Is it really worth it to jeopardize your career and, your place at this company? Or do you think this is the love of your life? I guess either way, you can always contact Pallavi and she will tell you how to go about it, or listen to this episode again. And you'll get some great advice from Pallavi. Thank you so much for being our guest today and speaking openly with us and giving us so much valuable knowledge.
Thank you so much, Evelyn, for picking up this topic in such a sincere and respectful manner. Majority still do not understand and appreciate the loss to a business, to loss to individual growth as a professional. When we start talking about it, because people somehow assume we are venturing into personal boundaries. Sadly, when you come to work, there's no such thing as personal anymore.
Correct.
If it's at work, it's business.
It's business.
And we have to look at it that way.
Absolutely. And I hope that many, many people will listen to this episode. Guys, please share it with someone that you think has to listen to this episode. Maybe somebody who's going through something right now, or maybe your boss. Maybe your boss needs to be a bit more open about this discussion and, they could benefit from listening to this episode. Yeah, guys, please share it. And again, thank you so much, Pallavi.
Hey, thank you, Evelyn.
Thank you. Fantastic. That was a great episode. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you have a question in matters of love, don't forget to write us at lovematters@dw.com. Tune in next time when we'll be talking about the trials and triumphs of an international relationship with the fabulous Kalki Kekela. You've been listening to Love Matters from Indian Express and DW, Germany's international broadcaster. Podcast about relationship topics that matter to you and me. I'm Evelyn Sharma, and I think love matters.
Love